The war was over. The human soldier, Captain Eli Ward, stood in the grand alien hall. Bright lights glowed from the tall ceilings. Alien leaders covered in golden robes and medals sat on thrones made of crystal. Around them, alien guards held sharp weapons. The room smelled of smoke and power. Eli had fought hard. He had bled for peace. He had lost friends on alien soil. Today, he thought they would give him a medal. Maybe a weapon of honor, maybe words of respect, but instead, they brought out her. Two guards dragged a small alien girl into the hall. She wore torn cloth around her body. Heavy metal chains hung from her wrists and ankles. Her skin was pale, her eyes full of fear. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. She was shaking. "This," one alien general said, standing proudly, "is your reward, human. A pleasure animal. Beautiful, isn't she? Yours now." Eli's smile disappeared. The hall laughed, loud, mocking laughs. The alien girl didn't even move. She kept her head down as if she expected to be kicked. Her lips were dry. Her arms were covered in old bruises. A small tag was burned into the collar on her neck. It had no name. Just a number. Eli stepped forward slowly. His boots echoed in the quiet room. "What's her name?" he asked. The alien general raised a brow. "Name? She doesn't have one. She doesn't need one. She's just for fun. Use her as you like." Eli looked at her closely. Her body trembled with every breath. She didn't dare look up. She didn't cry. It was like she had no tears left. Eli gently bent down and touched the chain. The girl flinched hard. She backed away, falling to her knees. Everyone laughed again, but Eli didn't laugh. Instead, he took off his long military coat and slowly wrapped it around her shoulders. She froze. Her wide eyes lifted for just a second, confused, shocked. Eli stood up and stared at the alien leaders. "I won this war," he said in a cold voice. "Not for this. She belongs to you now," the leader said, waving his hand. "Take her. That's an order." Eli sighed. He turned back to the girl. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's go." She didn't move. He took a step back and pointed toward the door. "You're free to walk beside me. I won't hurt you." Very slowly she crawled to her feet. Her legs were weak. She almost fell again. Eli walked beside her, letting her take her time. The hall watched in silence. Now, the laughter had stopped. Inside Eli's private quarters, the girl stood near the wall like a scared animal. She didn't sit. She didn't speak. She didn't remove the coat, even though it was too big for her. Eli brought her food. Soft bread. Warm broth. She didn't touch it. "I'm not going to harm you," he said gently. "You're safe now." Still, she said nothing. Eli placed the food on a small table and backed away. After a long time, she walked forward, slowly, carefully, like she was expecting someone to yell at her. She took one piece of bread and sat on the floor. Far from the chair, she ate in silence. Eli sat nearby but not too close. He watched her, not with hunger or desire, but with deep sadness. "What did they do to you?" he whispered to himself. The girl finished eating and curled into a ball near the corner. Her eyes stayed open. She didn't seem to trust sleep. Eli got up and opened a drawer. He pulled out a small metal tag and a pen. After a few seconds, he walked over and knelt beside her. "I don't know your name," he said, "but I think you deserve one." He showed her the tag. It read, "Luma." She stared at it. Her lips trembled. "You're not a thing," Eli said. "You're not property. You're not an animal. You are Luma." She didn't speak, but her hand reached out slowly, shaking, and touched the tag. Her fingers closed around it like it was a treasure. For the first time, her eyes filled with tears. The room was quiet, too quiet. Captain Eli sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the girl curled up in the corner like a shadow. The lights were dim, but even in the low glow, her eyes glimmered, not with hope, but fear. She hadn't spoken a single word, not a name, not a sound, just silence, but her eyes followed everything. Every move Eli made, she watched. Not like someone curious, but like someone who expected pain at any second. She didn't blink often. She barely breathed. To her, kindness was more terrifying than cruelty. Eli had dealt with machines, monsters, and warlords. He had survived firestorms, hunger, and betrayal. But nothing felt harder than being in this room. With a girl so broken, even freedom scared her. He placed a soft blanket near her without a word and stepped back. She didn't touch it. Hours passed. When Eli closed his eyes to rest, he heard a soft sound, not speech, not crying, just the quiet scraping of the chain on the floor. He turned. She had moved. Just a little. She had picked up the blanket and was holding it close, not wearing it, just holding it, like she was trying to remember what warmth was. Eli didn't speak. He knew this wasn't a moment to break, but deep down, something inside him tightened. Not anger, not pity, just a strange need to protect her. The next morning, he placed a warm bowl of food on the table again. She sat on the floor, far from it, watching, waiting. He backed away just like before. Slowly, she crawled toward it. She ate with tiny bites, like someone who feared it might disappear. Eli noticed something. Her eyes. They didn't look at the food. They looked at him, like she was reading him. Not with words, but with silent, deep questions. Why are you helping me? Will you hit me if I spill this? Am I still just a thing to you? He didn't answer with words either. Instead, he walked to the drawer, took out another tag, and this time brought something new. A marker. He placed it on the floor. Gently. Then he said, "You don't have to speak. But if you ever want to, you can write." She stared at the marker like it was a weapon. Then she looked at her hands. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and touched it. But instead of writing, she placed it gently on the floor and pushed it. Back to Eli. The next day, something changed. When he entered the room, she wasn't in the corner. She was sitting at the table. On the chair, still silent, still watching, but sitting. Progress. He sat across from her and smiled a little. "That chair likes you." Her head tilted just slightly. No reaction, but he swore he saw something, a flicker in her lips. Almost a smile. He took a sip of his drink and tried again. "You like stars?" Still, she said nothing, but her eyes shifted toward the small window, to the stars outside. Eli nodded. "Yeah, me too." Later that night, she did something that made his heart stop. She placed the tag he had made, Luma, on the table between them and pushed it toward him. Then, she placed her hand on her chest. Luma. She was telling him, "This is me now." For the first time, she was claiming something. Not food, not space, not warmth. Her identity. Eli smiled. A real one this time. And then, as he reached out to take the tag, she finally whispered something, so soft, so broken, it barely reached his ears. Thank you." It was the first word she had ever said. His smile faded, not from sadness, but from shock. Not because of her voice, but because of the pain buried inside it. But before he could speak, a loud buzz echoed from the door. He opened it and froze. A tall alien officer stood there, cold and cruel. "The command has changed." The officer said, "Your reward has been recalled. Return her immediately." The sound of her breathing was wrong. Captain Eli noticed it in the middle of the night. A soft, shaky rhythm, like she was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake from. She wasn't sleeping. She was surviving through sleep. He sat up and looked toward the corner of the room. There she was, Luma, curled into a tight ball, her arms wrapped around her knees, the blanket clenched in her fists. Her eyes were closed, but her whole body trembled. She made no sound, no scream, just small, quiet shakes, as if crying was too dangerous. Eli had seen soldiers with that look. War inside the mind. And sometimes that war never ended. He didn't call out to her. He just watched. And waited. When morning came, her eyes opened slowly. No yawn, no stretch. Just a blank stare, like she had been hiding inside herself all night. But when she saw Eli watching her, she flinched. Then something unexpected happened. She apologized with her hands. A small bow, a gesture of guilt. Eli's heart sank. She was sorry for sleeping. You don't have to say sorry, he whispered. You're safe here. She didn't reply. But her eyes softened, even just a little. That afternoon, Eli built something simple. He pushed the small furniture in the corner to create a soft area: cushions, folded blankets, even a small old toy animal he had once kept from a mission. A peaceful space. He pointed at it. This is yours, just yours. No one will touch you there, not even me. She stared at it like it was a trap. But later that night, she crawled toward it. She touched the toy. She blinked slowly, and then she lay down. Eli turned off the lights and didn't say a word. From the other side of the room, he heard it. Not trembling, not gasping, but a small sigh. Her first real sleep. The next day, something else changed. Luma was awake before Eli. She had already cleaned her blanket and folded it neatly. The toy animal was back on the shelf, placed carefully like a treasure. Eli smiled. She was beginning to believe that no pain was coming. He brought out a data pad. On it were pictures of stars, planets, animals from Earth. She pointed at a rabbit, then looked at the small toy. She made a quiet sound. Eli chuckled. Yeah, it's called a bunny. Buh. Nay, she whispered. You're learning, he said with a grin. And then he asked softly, did they ever tell you where you were born? She shook her head. Eli looked down. You deserve to know. You deserve a real life. Luma watched him closely. Her eyes didn't carry only fear anymore. They carried hope. But just when things felt warm and quiet, trouble knocked again. Literally. A loud bang on the door made Luma jump. She backed into the corner instantly, clutching the toy bunny like a shield. Eli opened the door to find a messenger drone hovering there. A cold voice echoed from it. You are under review for disobedience. Prepare for inspection. Return the property. Eli clenched his jaw. He turned to Luma, who was now crouched in the shadows, shaking. He walked over, knelt down, and looked her in the eyes. I won't let them take you, he whispered. Even if I have to fight the whole system. And for the first time, her hand moved forward. She touched his sleeve, not pulled, not pushed. Just held it. A silent message. Don't leave me. The knock didn't come this time. They kicked the door open. The sound was loud, metal crashing against metal, and it made Luma scream without sound. She backed into the wall, her hands shaking, her toy bunny falling to the floor. Captain Eli was already on his feet. 3 armed officers stormed into the room. Their armor was sharp and black. Their eyes were cold. One of them pointed straight at Luma. There she is. The property. Eli stood between them, calm but dangerous. His voice was low. She's not property. She's tagged, the officer said. She was given to you. That means she belongs to us. Return her. No, Eli said, his voice sharper now. She has a name. She's not a number. One of the officers stepped forward and raised a stun baton. I won't ask again. Eli's eyes never left him. Touch her, and I break your arm. The officer paused. He wasn't sure if Eli was bluffing. Most humans wouldn't risk their career for a gift. But there was something different in the captain's eyes. It wasn't anger, it was protective fire. Behind Eli, Luma had sunk to the floor. Her nails scratched the wall. Her breaths came fast and uneven. She had seen this before. Chains, orders, Pain. Her mind was already shutting down. Stand down, Captain, the lead officer warned. This is an official recall. You don't want to lose your rank over some broken alien girl. Eli stepped closer. She has a name, he said again. Say it. Silence, I said. Say her name. The officer scoffed. She doesn't have one. Eli punched him hard that the man hit the floor, blood running from his nose. The other two raised their weapons, but Eli raised his hands. No weapons, no fight, Eli said coldly. I'll go to the high command myself. You want her? You'll have to explain it to the council with her standing beside me. The officers hesitated. They had orders, but not enough to start a war with a war hero. After a tense moment, the lead officer wiped his nose and growled, You have 3 days. Then she comes with us. They left. When the door finally closed, Luma was still on the ground. Her arms were over her head. Her body was frozen in a tight ball. Eli knelt beside her and placed a hand gently on her back. She didn't move, but tears slid down her cheeks. You're not going back, Eli whispered. I swear it. That night, Eli didn't sleep. He sat at his desk, eyes locked on the small screen. He was digging through files, codes, and laws, looking for anything, any crack in the system that could save her. And finally, he found something, a rule, old, forgotten, but real. Any intelligent being, once named and recognized by a citizen, could petition for protected status, but he had to act fast. The next morning, Eli placed a soft shirt and cloak on the bed. He walked over to Luma, who still hadn't spoken since the invasion. We're leaving, he said. Right now I found a way. Luma looked up, eyes wide. Will they hurt you? She asked in a voice so quiet it was like wind. Eli smiled gently. Not if I'm fast. She didn't ask where. She didn't ask how. That she just stood up and, for the first time, she reached for his hand, not because she was afraid, but because she trusted him. The alarm didn't sound, because Eli had turned it off himself. The military base was still asleep when he moved through the shadows, his coat wrapped tight around the fragile figure walking beside him, Luma. Her steps were light, almost silent, like she was afraid the floor might scream, but her hand gripped his tightly. This wasn't just escape. This was survival. And Eli had only one shot. They reached the hangar without being seen. Inside, silver ships slept under low lights. Security drones floated near the ceiling like silent ghosts. Eli had stolen the right codes earlier, but codes could lie, and drones never slept. Luma paused out. Eli looked down at her. You still want to do this? She looked up. Her lips moved slowly. I want to be free. That was all he needed. The ship roared to life. As it lifted into the dark sky, red lights finally lit up across the base. Unauthorized launch detected. Vessel ID, Captain Eli Ward. Subject, alien property escape. Blasters fired, but too late. They were already breaking atmosphere. Luma pressed herself against the wall, wide-eyed, shaking. Eli reached over and wrapped her hand in his again. You're not property, he said calmly. Not anymore. Hours passed. The stars outside looked peaceful, but Eli knew better. He checked the navigation screen. There were red marks, warnings. Trackers, bounties. They'll hunt us, he muttered. Luma was sitting quietly near the engine room, holding the small bunny toy in her lap. I'm sorry, she said softly. You lost everything. Eli turned to her. I didn't lose you. They landed on an outer colony, Ravari 6, a peaceful place where humans and aliens lived side by side, away from war, away from chains. The city was messy, but alive. There were street vendors, laughter, kids playing with robots. No one cared where you came from, only who you were now. Eli rented a small room above a dusty old shop. The windows were cracked and the walls smelled like paint, but it was home. Luma stood by the window for hours, just staring. What are you looking at? Eli asked. The sky, she said. I never knew it could be blue. Every day after that, she changed. She started wearing colors. She asked questions. She even laughed once, quiet and soft, but real. Eli taught her how to make toast. She burned the first 4 slices but smiled every time. She learned the names of animals, planets, and tools. She even whispered a joke one night. And Eli couldn't stop laughing. And then one afternoon, they visited the market. Luma wore a cloak and walked beside Eli, not behind him. Vendors shouted prices. People bumped shoulders. It was loud, full of life. Luma bought a small notebook with a few credits Eli gave her. What will you write? He asked. She smiled. My name, again and again, just to believe it's mine. But peace didn't last. One evening, Eli saw something on the public screen. A warning. A bounty. It showed his face. And below it, reward 15,000 credits. Human traitor. Accompanied by stolen subject. Tag #X778. Luma saw it too. Her hands shook. They're still coming for me. Eli shut off the screen. Then we'll keep running, he said. Until there's nowhere left to chase us. But deep in his heart, he knew they couldn't run forever. It was supposed to be a safe day. The sun was gentle. The wind was soft. And Luma had just smiled at a flower for the first time in her life. She reached out and touched its petals like they were made of gold. Captain Eli stood beside her, his heart warm. She was healing. He thought they had time. He was wrong. The trap came from a friendly face. The old woman who sold fruit on the corner. The one who always gave Luma free samples. She smiled as usual. She waved goodbye. And then the ground shook. A sound like thunder filled the sky. Military dropships. 3 of them. Luma froze in the street, her eyes wide with horror. No. No, she whispered, stepping back. Eli grabbed her hand. Run. They raced through the market. People screamed and scattered. Aliens and humans ran in all directions as the soldiers landed. But they weren't there for the crowd. They were there for her. A soldier tackled Eli from the side. Luma screamed his name, but another grabbed her from behind. She kicked, scratched, even bit. But they were too many. One of them pulled out a black collar. No! Eli shouted, blood on his lip. Don't you touch her. Luma's eyes were wild with terror as the collar clicked around her neck again. Old tag still fit. X778. Just like before. They dragged her into the ship. Eli fought. He bled. But a hard hit to the back of his head dropped him cold. The last thing he saw was Luma screaming for him, the collar glowing red. When Eli woke up, he was alone. His wrists were bandaged. His head was pounding. The colonies. Medical robot said, you were found on the street. Be glad you're alive. He stood up, but inside, something was missing, something he had sworn to protect. Luma sat in a dark cell. The walls were cold. Her arms were chained again. The collar buzzed if she moved too far. She had no windows, no voice. The guards never spoke to her. They didn't need to to them. She wasn't a person. Just an object returned to its box. But worst of all, she thought Eli was dead. They told her the human was caught, executed. Your protector failed. One guard said, just like they all do. Luma closed her eyes and didn't speak for days. Then one night, a figure stepped into the hall. Silent, hidden, moving like a shadow. The guard on duty fell with a quiet thud. Luma opened her eyes. The cell door beeped and opened. And there he stood. Eli. Alive. Bloody, bruised, but breathing. I told you, he whispered. I'm not leaving you. She didn't believe her eyes. For a moment, she thought it was a dream, another cruel trick. Her mind was playing in the dark. But the moment he whispered her name, Luma, everything changed. She felt it in her chest, real, alive, him. Captain. Eli had come back for her. Again. She ran into his arms. Chains clinked as she moved. But this time, they didn't stop her. Eli held her tightly, even as the collar buzzed with warning. She didn't care. She was shaking, not from fear, but from something strange and new relief. "You're hurt," she whispered. "So are you," he answered softly. Behind them, alarms started to rise. Eli placed his hand gently on her collar and pulled out a small tool. "Let's get this thing off you." A few sparks, a soft pop. The collar hit the floor. Luma stared at it, at the symbol of everything that had once owned her. And then she stepped over it without looking back. They moved quickly. Eli led her through the old escape routes of the prison facility. Smoke rose in the distance. Fighters were in the sky, but Eli didn't stop. Not once. Every guard who stood in his way fell. He didn't kill. He didn't need to. His rage was silent but unstoppable. Finally they reached a landing pad. One small ship waited, engine humming. "Almost there," Eli said, pulling Luma close. "Just a little more." But as they reached the ramp, a tall shadow blocked their path. High Commander Jareth, the same alien who had once laughed when Luma was given away like a toy. "You dare steal what belongs to the Empire?" The commander growled. "She doesn't belong to anyone," Eli replied. "Not anymore." "She's a thing," Jareth spat. "A tool, an object." Eli raised his weapon. "She's Luma." Jareth rushed forward. Eli fired. The blast hit his shoulder. He dropped to the ground with a roar. Luma stood frozen. Eli turned to her and smiled. "Time to fly." The ship broke through the clouds. For the first time, Luma saw stars without fear. She stood at the window, her hair moving gently with the wind of the ship's air system, and beside her Eli, quiet, proud, safe. He handed her a small metal pendant. "I melted down your collar," he said. "Turned it into something new." She looked at it. A simple silver shape, and engraved in it, just one word, Luma. "I was never a name before," she whispered. "You are now," Eli said. "And you always will be." They found peace. On a distant moon. No chains. No ranks, no soldiers. Just two souls, one healing, one guarding. Luma learned how to plant flowers. She laughed more, sang softly. And one day, she stood under a glowing tree and said, "Back then, I was called an animal." Eli looked at her, smiling. "And now?" he asked. She touched the pendant on her neck. "Now, I am loved."